Hi, Ariane, again.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Amit?
Hey, hi Ariane, nice to meet you. I'm
Lovely
one
to
of
meet
the
you.
I'm one of the fellow interviewers, and Terry and myself have been working together. I think it's been on and off for about a year and a half, right, Terry? Working with many different creative people, mostly writers. So it's a pleasure to be interviewing you today, and we look forward to learning more about you.
Thanks for the short notice as well, Ariane. I think it was only Thursday or Friday, wasn't it? We had a quick chat on Twitter.
Nice surprise to be asked. So yeah, very excited.
Okay, so I'm dying to ask a few questions, but before I get on to the book that I started reading, Ariane, and that's where I've got most of my questions from, I had a question. Pretty much we ask a lot of the creative people, especially writers, that we have on our interviews, and the question is, what inspires you?
Wow, so it can be anything. Genuinely, inspiration can strike at any time. Often it's when I'm relaxed and not expecting it to, like when I'm in the shower or when I'm like drifting off to sleep. Sometimes it's from things that I wish for. So like, for instance, I've had lots of ideas for novels based on wishing things were different for myself. So I wrote a novel called Shitcom, which is available on Amazon, and it's about a body swap. And I thought of the idea because I thought, God, it would be so nice to be a successful sitcom writer rather than a struggling sitcom writer. And so I created these two characters. One is a really nice guy, but he's desperately struggling, in debt, not doing very well for himself at all. And then
Neil is
other guy is a complete asshole, but he's like at the top of his game. And I thought how funny it could be if they swap bodies. So that's where that came from. The Atheist Bus campaign came from as quite a sad place, really. I'd experienced religion at one of the most vulnerable and desperate times of my life, and I'd sort of seen all this propaganda. I was pregnant at the time, and my boyfriend at the time turned violent. It was his baby, and I searched for abortion. I initially didn't want to have an abortion. I searched for abortion, and all this pro-life propaganda came up from religious sites, a Catholic site saying, if you have an abortion, you'll become infertile, you will get breast cancer, and you'll go to hell. I'm not sure which order those things were meant to happen in, but I didn't become infertile. I've got a lovely 10-year-old now, so from another relationship. And yeah, so when I saw a few years later these Christian adverts on buses, I thought, well, this is a bit ridiculous, telling people that they're going to go to hell again, because there was a website linked to the buses saying, you know, non-Christians will burn in hell for all eternity. And I thought, well, what if we put a really rational suggestion on a bus that there's probably no God, now stop worrying and enjoy your life? I didn't expect it to take off in the way that it did. But yeah, inspiration, in short, can come from anywhere.
The novel you mentioned, I downloaded that today to my Kindle. I think within an hour I'd read about 50 pages. It just sort of flows brilliantly.
Oh, thank you.
So I'll be adding my review shortly.
Oh, that is such a lovely thing to say. I mean, your review pending, because you know you might have hated it, but it's I can only apologize for the amount of swearing in that book. I did try to put a warning. It's extremely sweary.
Ariane, would I be right in suggesting that you, very early on you experienced some success professionally, but it was quite unbalanced in terms of the personal turmoil that you were going through, and you really kind of wanted to go through that process of getting, you know, some nice experiences in your personal life because of the things that happened growing up. So would you say that it makes for a more stable professional kind of basis if you've got a good you know, kind of family life, home life? Or do you think it can sometimes just create, you know, that creative spirit can come from I wouldn't say a negative experience, but sometimes it can be quite, you know, traumatic and difficult. So can it work perversely like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of writers, a lot of comedians have had very dysfunctional childhoods. So a lot of us are fuck ups, basically. And I think that that does add to being able to create comedy, because we naturally go for the element of shock and surprise and hilarity, and we don't take the sort of stable, normal route creatively. So I think that that can lead to great works of art, but I think it can also lead to obviously a lot of misery. So I often say that if I could have swapped having a happy, stable childhood for being a creative, then I probably would have made that swap, and I probably would have become an accountant or something. I think life would maybe have been less interesting.
We're glad you didn't become an accountant.
I think there's that
we have enough accountants in the world.
I don't think it's a cliche. I think it's a truism. I think that people who've had an unhappy childhood are able to sort of draw on that well of experience for conflict in fiction.
Yeah, I think you're right. And if you're not writing about yourself directly, then you're writing from experience, and you can draw on those emotions. And I suppose if you've never experienced great pain or suffering, it's quite hard to create characters who have, because you have to imagine how they would feel, whereas somebody who has been through very bleak, hard times can just create those worlds instantly because they have them inside them. So yeah, I think you're right.
Ariane, one thing you shared in the book, and I'd firstly like to just thank you for basically, you know, by being so open and quite vulnerable for allowing other people to maybe feel, you know, motivated to talk. But this idea of therapy, I mean, I can only share my personal experience, which is that it's quite like, you know, being an Asian male, it's quite a taboo thing to tell people, oh, I've had therapy, I've gone through the process. But now people's views are kind of changing. And I think I was 38 when I was pushed, thankfully, by my sister to kind of go through that process. But now I look back and I think it was the best thing, you know, I ever did. Would you say that despite, as you share, you know, some therapists are not as good as others, would you say that, you know, there's really in the long run no kind of negative outcome of seeking out some kind of therapy? Because I know you share, you know, many different types of therapy in the book, but would you say no matter what your background, no matter, you know, how others might view it, you really should just kind of
yeah, I mean, so you're talking about Talk Yourself Better, which was a book I wrote in, so that came out in 2018. Sure. Well, thank you for buying it.
That's okay.
So, yes, I think that it can be beneficial to anybody and everybody. And if I had the money, I would still be in therapy. I don't, so I'm not. But thankfully, I've had so much therapy now. I had 23 years worth of therapy, and that helped me sort out a lot of things in my brain. I mean,
but
I think that things are changing in Britain. There are lots of mental health campaigns now in a way that there weren't 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think people are a bit more understanding if you are going through difficulties, especially at work. I think employers often have, if not a counseling service attached to the firm, then definitely a policy of being much more understanding about mental health. So I think things are getting better. But you're right, the British and American attitudes to therapy definitely differ. And I think also things are getting better for guys because, like you say, being male and perhaps especially an Asian male, then it can be a taboo within, not only sort of within your gender, but also within your community. So yeah, but hopefully there's enough awareness about now, and it'll only get better, it'll only increase. And most people will be, I guess, more understanding and more compassionate when it comes to mental health.
I was also going to share the fact that we both have, I think we both have girls around the same age. Your daughter's 10, my one's 11. Do you think this generation needs this new, this new upcoming, especially young females, right? We're almost, doing, as well as our professional work, we're doing something just as important, raising these young girls. So what do we need to do? What can we help them with?
Just instill them with confidence and self-belief, and make sure that they're as happy and stable as they can be. That's always been the most important thing for me. But how old's your little one?
My one's 11. She just started secondary school on Monday, last Monday.
Oh,
so
lovely.
It's probably the scariest week of my life.
Oh,
worrying about how she goes, but she's fine. She's good. Yes.
that's great. That's great. Yeah, mine's just started the last year of primary. So yeah.
Ariane, if you don't mind, we could go talking about childhood. Did we go back to your childhood, leaving school,
Sure.
expelled
Yeah,
at 16?
Yeah.
Naughty girl.
I'd just been bullied for like 5 years, and there was this girl who joined in sixth form and just decided to bully me. She was about twice my height, and one day she was just being horrendous. She called me pathetic and a load of other things, and she was just hovering over my desk, and she spat in my lunch.
Oh,
and I had
lovely.
a Coke can on my desk, and it wasn't even my Coke can, it was somebody else's Coke can, but it was open, but it was full. So I picked it up and I threw it in her face, and she got a massive black eye, and she had Coke dripping down her hair, and she said, "I'll get you for this." And the next day, her stepsister's gang turned up at the school gates to beat me up. And the deputy head had to escort me past the gang and to the station to get my train. And he said that the school basically thought that I should leave because I brought this on myself. And I was like, well, I don't care because I hate school anyway. So yeah, I will leave. So yeah, I mean, it was a difficult situation, but I really hated school, wasn't enjoying it. I never enjoyed it, never enjoyed any of my education. Even though I'm educated up to MA level, I didn't enjoy one single second of my education really. And I think that I also felt quite upset that my parents didn't care enough to protect me from this gang and from this girl, and my parents didn't care enough to do anything about the bullying. So it'd gone on for 11, 12 years, and I'd just had enough. So the Coke can was a reaction to that. Yeah.
So a couple of years later, you go from school and then you're in the recording studio with Duran. I've read somewhere.
Yeah, no, it was about 6 months later. I I loved Duran, and the deputy head, when I was leaving school, he said, "You've got to work out what you're going to do now." And I said, "Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and find Duran," which probably wasn't the expected response. So I found out where they were recording in Battersea, and I went down to see them, and the guitarist recognized me and invited me in. So I got to sit in the studio and listen to what they were recording and all the different tracks, and which was amazing. And then a few weeks later, Simon Le Bon turned up on his motorbike, and Simon Le Bon and I are both from the same village in Harrow called Pinner. And Simon Le Bon said that he'd like to go back to Pinner. So one day he turned up at my house on his motorbike, and he was carrying a spare helmet. And he came in for a cup of tea. He played me a few songs, and he met my dad, who didn't know who he was because my dad didn't know anything about rock music. And then we went for a big ride on his motorbike, and I was terrified, but I thought, well, if I have to die, surely there's no better way than on the back of Simon Le Bon's motorbike.
That's a hell of a story.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my God.
like my best story. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to top that one. That's it. I'm sorry, guys. That's all I've got.
End the interview then.
Is
Are you
that-
still in touch?
Yeah, we're still in touch. When was it? Yeah, it was April, last April. My daughter broke her wrist and she had to have an operation under general anesthetic.
Wow.
And I was terrified. And it was the week of her 10th birthday. And because she'd been so brave and she'd gone through the whole operation with no fuss, I asked Simon Le Bon if he could record a video message for her. And so he recorded a lovely message for her, sent it to me. And Richard Osman also recorded a lovely message, sent it to me. And I think she might have been more impressed with Richard Osman because she likes Pointless and she'd seen him. She didn't really know who Simon Le Bon was. But when I explained that he was like Taylor Swift, but in the 1980s, she was like, wow, was he really as big as Taylor Swift? I was like, oh, yes. No, he was massive. So she was kind of impressed then.
Was it from this connection that you got into writing for the New Musical Express, the NME?
Oh yeah. So I started. Well, I did work experience. I was doing a music degree, and we had to do work experience somewhere. And some people went to record companies, and I decided to do mine at the NME. And during my work experience, I got to write a load of reviews, and then I got to write a few for the paper. So that didn't last very long. And I ended up dating their news editor. So that was sort of more memorable. Yeah, I mean, it was quite exciting to be working sort of in journalism, albeit very, very briefly. And, you know, I was only in the building for like 2 weeks. But I'd been reading Enemy for a long time, and to go in and to see all the faces and put them to names and all the rest of it was pretty cool. But I did a lot more journalism after that, so that was just sort of the first thing and probably the briefest thing that I did.
Was it after this NME, can't say, but you sent off for a competition for the BBC for a script writing?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I wanted to be a pop star, and I knew that it was very unlikely that I'd get to be a pop star. And I was playing piano and singing in lounge bars, and I'd just sort of become quite disillusioned with the whole idea for a few reasons. But I thought I'd probably end up in cruise ships and it would all be miserable and I'd very low paid. And so I stopped singing, and I thought, well, I've got to find something else to do. And it seemed that writing, from my experience at NME, was relatively easy, and it was reasonably glamorous. It wasn't quite as glamorous as being a pop star, but you know, it was getting there. And so I saw this.
Ariana, it's someone.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
You carry on, Terry. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, the video's link's gone, Ahmed. There you go, back on.
Cool. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you fine? Yep.
Oh,
Perfect.
great.
Yeah. Sorry.
Great. Yeah, so I thought that I'd try and become a writer instead of becoming a singer-songwriter. And I was in the queue in HMV one day and I saw this booklet all about script writing. Well, it was for BBC Talent. And so there were a series of different contests for members of the public to enter. And I'd never written a script before in my life. But the Sitcom Writers Award kind of grabbed me because I thought, oh, that sounds really fun. And I wonder if I could try that. And so I wrote my very first script, and I'd been staying with my nan and granddad up in Leicester, who were Asian. And my nan and, well, my granddad in particular was very religious. And I thought, what must it be like to have really religious Asian parents instead of having really religious Asian grandparents. And so I wrote about a very modern feminist Asian girl whose parents were trying to set her up with a suitor for marriage, and every episode she would try and thwart the attempts of the suitor to marry her and try and put him off, or you know dissuade him from marrying her. And she had an admirer called Darren, who was a builder, and he was very sexist. But he was totally in love with Layla, this modern Asian girl. And I thought, even though my grandparents were Zoroastrian, I thought I can't write about Zoroastrian because nobody really knows what Zoroastrians are, and there's very few Zoroastrians in the UK. So I thought I'd make her Sikh. And so I made Darren's surname Hyde, so the sitcom could be called Hide and Seek. And I ended up coming runner-up in that contest, which was, I didn't expect it. I totally didn't expect it. In fact, we were all sent off. I got in the last 10, and we were all sent off to rewrite our scripts. And they'd been so critical of my script at the BBC that I assumed there was no way I was getting through. So instead of going and rewriting my script, I just went on holiday. And then I got a call from them saying, "Where's your script?" And I said, "Oh, I thought you didn't like it." And they were like, "No, we do like it." I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I sent it in, and but it was a bit of a baptism of fire because, like, it just got completely torn to shreds in the process of the course. And I thought, I can't do this. I remember walking around the BBC canteen in tears, just thinking, this is not for me. But yeah, then I clearly I did okay at that, and then I ended up being put on a number of different BBC shows to write for them. And I wrote for Channel 4's Countdown. I used to read, they got letters that were meant to be read out by Richard Whiteley and Des Lynam at the start of the show.
Yeah.
But they didn't get enough audience letters, and the ones that they did get weren't high enough quality. So I was hired to write the letters. Yeah, sure.
I'm looking at your website. Got it loaded on the other screen. Ariane Sherine is a writer, author, journalist, comedian, public speaker, pop star in waiting, musician, and podcaster. That's a handful. I don't think I've
Yeah.
anyone so many different talents. What would you say? What are you, a writer? What are you deep down? What's your main?
So deep down,
Creative.
I'm a pop star.
Pop star.
Yeah, deep down, like, that's always been my dream, to be a pop star. And the writing was something I did because it was sort of, it was a second thing that wasn't too unglamorous and was reasonably well paid. And I thought it would still impress people at parties, and it was still creative, but it's let's be honest, it's not quite as glam as being a pop star. It's not quite as cool.
We're gonna launch Ariane X. Is that next year? Debut album?
Yeah, I know. It's very exciting. So I'm just working on my first album now, and it's sort of like intelligent electropop. So think Pet Shop Boys meets Saint Etienne. If they had a love child, which they wouldn't. But if they did have a love child, that might be me. It's sexy, it's rude, it's sweary, and I'm really enjoying it. So
I enjoyed watching your love song for Jeremy Corbyn. I nearly fell off my chair laughing with that. That was absolutely brilliant. You got a line on there. What is it? One bonk from you and you being Labour. One bonk from the leader and you being Labour. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Did you get any feedback? I don't suppose you got to him somehow. He didn't get any reply, any reaction? No.
I like to think that he's seen it.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what he's made of it. I mean, it was trailed in like the Evening Standard and the Spectator, so it's possible that he's seen it. But I've not ever been in touch with him. I think he'd probably be a bit scared of me now. I think women professing to, you know, love him and want his babies might be a little bit off-putting, even if it's only in a comedy sense. But yeah, no, I didn't really, it wasn't that successful a video because a lot of people did find it funny, but the Corbyn fans found it a bit, they thought it was making fun of their hero, and the people who weren't Corbyn fans thought it was a love song for Jeremy Corbyn. So
you can't win.
No, I couldn't win, but hopefully, you know, lots of people did find it funny. I certainly had fun making it.
Yeah.
So
I enjoyed it. Can just go back to your past again. When I mentioned to a couple of people that I was lucky enough to be able to talk to yourself, first thing they thought of was the atheist bus campaign. And you mentioned it briefly earlier. Can you just tell us what happened there? You saw these images on buses saying you're going to die in hell if you're not a Christian, and other nice messages.
No, so the images didn't say that. They were just Bible quotes, but they had a website underneath them. And I went to the website and there was all the usual sort of burn in hell for eternity rhetoric, sort of burning in a lake of fire. And I was writing for The Guardian at the time. And I was always looking for stuff to write columns about. And most of the time I'd write columns about the news, but occasionally I would get an idea from real life for a column. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to write a column about these religious ads and how preposterous they are, and how we could get, oh, hello, Amit.
Hey, sorry.
My
Wi-Fi's playing up today. Is it any better?
It's perfectly clear.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So. Oh, that's Siri. Sorry. Shush. Sorry, my. How to respond to that? Okay, we'll just wait for her to stop talking. So I thought it would be fun to write a column about these Bible quotes on buses with the link to the website that has all this rhetoric about hell and damnation on it, and say, we can't be spreading fear from the side of a bus. And I thought, well, how do we solve this problem? What's the solution? I don't believe in censorship. And then I thought, well, how about we have an alternative ad on a bus funded by all the people who read this article? So if every atheist who reads this article gives a $5, we could get an ad on the side of a bus that says something like, there's probably no God, now stop worrying and enjoy your life. And it was just a handy way to end the article. I wasn't intending to start a campaign, but underneath the article, all these comments appeared. I've got a $5. Where do I send my $5? I want to give you my $5. And I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I don't know how to do this. And the editor who'd commissioned the piece contacted a society called the National Secular Society. And the guy from the National Secular Society came on the thread and said, we're not going to do this bus, but give money to us anyway. And then this guy asked me if he could set up a funding page, and he did that, and it failed. And I thought, well, maybe that's the end of it. But then the Telegraph ran a piece about this funding page and how it had failed. And they were like, oh, atheists too tight to cough up for bus ads. And it was all about how they were laughing at us for not managing to reach the funding target. But I was like, well, that's not really fair, because it hasn't been publicized and it's not something that I did or something that I ran. And I thought, well, maybe let's do it properly. So I wrote another 2 pieces in The Guardian. The first one, I asked if anybody wanted to get in touch. Lots of people did get in touch, and Richard Dawkins put something on his forum saying that if he'd known about the original funding thing, then he would have donated. And so I got in touch with him, and I wanted a quote. And then he said, well, if you do this campaign, how about I encourage people by sponsoring it? How about I match donations up to £5,500? So that was amazing. So that ran in The Guardian, and it said, it's real, it's happening. Atheist ads going to be on the side of buses, and Richard Dawkins will match your money. And the article went up, I think, at like midnight, and by I think 10 a.m. the next day, we'd already met the target. And by the end of 4 days, we'd raised £100,000. And by the end of the funding in 6 months, we'd raised over £150,000. So it was a bit crazy. It was this global sensation that I never imagined, when I was coming up with my first column in my bedroom, that would ever have happened. So it was very overwhelming, very exciting. And I got lots of hate mail, and eventually that would see me have a nervous breakdown. Because when your face is on newspapers all around the world, and you have TV appearances on, Australian, Canadian, US TV, with your name under your face, people tend to email you. And a lot of the places in which it was shown were quite religious places, parts of the US. I got an email saying, if you come to America, I will shoot you in the head.
Lovely.
Nice welcome.
I actually did go to America in 2017, and as you can see, he didn't. So that was a relief. But it's quite funny actually. When I went to America in 2017, it was right in the middle of Trump's reign, and my friends were teasing me. And they said, on the day I was flying, by the time you read this, you'll have just had your second anal cavity strip search. And I was thanks for that. And all that happened was, when I got there, there was like a stopover, and I had to have my passport over. And the guy behind in customs said, where are you going? And I said, Las Vegas to get married. And he went, Vegas, and handed me my passport back. So I didn't get the anal cavity strip search, much to my disappointment.
That's a bonus. So the backlash then, was that mainly from, I don't know, southern states of America?
Well, it was mainly from Christians. I don't know where all the emails were from. I mean, I assume the guy who said, if you come to America, was in America, because that would make sense. But I'm not sure about a lot of them. There was one girl who sent my picture to everybody in her email list, saying, this is the girl who wants to tell the world that God does not exist. So that was like a little bit off-putting. I mean, eventually I just went, just got incredibly paranoid, and couldn't cope with life anymore, and had a major nervous breakdown, and didn't write in public for 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah, it was a dark time. It was awful. It was really awful. But I'm I'm back. I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I've got a wonderful 10-year-old girl, and lots of lovely, fun, creative projects. So I do feel very lucky. So I've got a number of different books that I'm working on. As you read on my website, I do too much stuff, so I am always sort of up to my eyes in projects. But that's good. That's the way I like it. I like being enthused by lots of different creative ideas. But of course, I can't do all of them at once. So
one of the lines on your website that says she occasionally sleeps too. I'm surprised you have the
time. Yeah, no, I do. I sleep loads. I sleep a lot of the time. My dad used to sleep a lot too. So we both sleep like 11, 12 hours a day. My dad slept so much, I used to call him Our Father who art in bed, Robert be thy name. So they say that you should only sleep between 7 and 8 hours a night, and if you sleep more than 8, then your mortality risk goes up.
Be able to see me. I was just asking Ariane if the criticism, if it gets any easier, especially, you know, with your creative work, does it ever make you a bit kind of nervous about putting things out there, or do you just think it makes you a bit tougher and more resilient in terms of not caring what people think?
I think that criticism is always hard, no matter what level of your career you're at. I was speaking to a major celebrity who said that he'll get like hundreds of supportive and positive tweets, but there'll be one negative one, and that will be the one that he focuses up on. Same with reviews. Like, you get all the positive reviews in the world, but that one negative one, you're like, just sticks in your brain. So I think that it's really tough. And I think the main thing is to just not let it stop you from creating, because creating is, if you're a creative person, then you kind of have to do it. And if you don't do it, then you feel like a bit of your soul is shriveled. So I think that it is difficult. I mean, I've got rejections from agents before that have been so harsh. Like, oh, I like the idea of your book, but when I was reading it, I realized I didn't actually want to read on. I was like, thanks. Like, I wanted to know what happened, but I didn't want to read your writing. Cheers. But you know, they're entitled to their opinion, and sometimes it's not delivered in like an optimal way, but yeah, it's just part of the game, really. And it's funny because it's like, I self-published Shitcom because I thought that no traditional publisher would touch it, to be honest, because it's so sweary and it's so rude. And I've only sold like 100 copies. I mean, I think part of it is that I haven't really felt confident enough, because I've been so overweight. Like, as you can see from the photo behind you, Terry, like at my heaviest, I was almost morbidly obese, and I had a BMI of almost 38.
Yeah.
Which is class 2 obese. And I've managed to get that BMI now down to 30.4. So I'm just above the overweight section. And that sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? Like, oh, I'm so excited to be overweight. But like, I'm excited to be overweight and not obese. But yeah, I think when you are that big, especially when you've been skinny and pretty, and then you kind of balloon in weight because of antipsychotics and antidepressants, often having that confidence to appear in front of people is difficult. And so I haven't felt able really to make videos talking about my book, and maybe I should, because I feel a little bit more confident now, but I haven't done that. And I think that hammering, you know, buy my book is really difficult. But it's no different to having a major publisher behind you, because my last book, How to Live to 100, came out during the pandemic, and it sold less than 200 copies because most people were just concerned with living to next week rather than living to 100. And I felt
Bad
quite
timing.
bad. Yeah, I felt quite bad saying, hey, everybody, buy my book about living to 100, when there was so many people like dropping dead at like 40 and 50. I felt like, you know, this is not the right time. So yeah, I think that a lot of the time people assume that publishers will do publicity for you, but they don't. Like, you have to do the vast majority of your publicity. And I love everybody at my publishers, they're great. But I think that when you're at the level I am, when you're not like a major celebrity, it's very difficult to get your sort of message out there, and your because you don't have that reach. So I've got maybe 10,000 followers on Twitter, and that sounds like a big number, but I reckon probably 2,000 or 3,000 of them aren't on there anymore. You know, they've set up accounts, and they've liked they followed me, and then they've just kind of decided not to use it.
I think Twitter it cuts them off after 6 months, I think.
Does it? If they
dormant
don't...
accounts, yeah. I thought the same, because I drop about 10 accounts every day, or unfollows, but then I get 10 new people. Oh, just in case I mentioned the picture behind me, I think you look great on there. You look fine to me.
Oh, thank you. I wish I agreed. But no. I'm like at pretty much my heaviest, and I think it's like when you weigh like 7 stone 7 pounds,
yeah.
and then you balloon to like, you know, double your body weight, and it's like, well, you don't feel like you anymore. You feel like, in fact, I saw this girl who had known me when I was skinny, and she said, you look like you're wearing a fat suit. I was like, thanks.
Oh my God, wow.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
people can be harsh and they don't think about what they're saying and stuff, but yeah, I'm looking forward to finally losing the weight and feeling more like myself again, and then I'll feel more able to get out there and make music videos and make videos for my books and make YouTube videos, etc. So yeah.
Did you have questions you were going to ask?
I think actually the thing with COVID. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, Ariane. I work, when I'm not doing interviews with Terry, I work with young people who are mostly kind of 16 to 24. A lot of them left school. We do a lot of English classes, and I try and encourage them to kind of be a bit more confident and communicative. So I was just wondering, do you feel like with that kind of generation where some of them are really feeling quite lost and a bit alienated, that there's things, because I know you said you didn't have a great experience with school and education, but do you think there's something positive which teachers can impart, or educators generally, that might kind of bring them back to feel more motivated, or to feel a bit more, as I said at the start, inspired? Because I asked you what inspires you, but do you think there's anything, or do you think it's just, you know, it's an individual thing and people have to go through that process?
So I think there are a few books that seem to have helped my daughter and made her feel more motivated and more confident. One is the series You Are Awesome by Matthew Syed, and she's also enjoying You Are a Champion by Marcus Rashford. So I think both those books, she's got the You Are Awesome journal as well. She seems to be feeling a little bit more kind of confident and backing herself and happy within herself. But beyond that, I don't really know. I mean, I think that there is a lot of self-help wisdom out there, but as you say, it does depend on the individual. I do a kind of thought for the day on Twitter and Facebook every day, in which I impart some of my dubious wisdom. And it is serious. It's meant to be serious, but what I generally say to people is, you know, you've got one life and we probably won't get another, and this is your time to do everything that you want to do right now. It's not a dress rehearsal, you know, and the odds of us even being alive are like 1 to, I think it's like 100 to the power of like quadrillion or something crazy. It's like,
I think I came across that statistic. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, I shared that with my students. That's a crazy statistic. Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy, mental, isn't it? I mean, it's like but saying that, when you're saying that to little kids, like, oh, you've only got one life, and it's like, if they're 10, then they've got like ages, so they're not going to be worried about that. Whereas if you're, you know, 41, 42 or older, then you're going to be like, okay, yeah, you've got a point there. I've probably only got half my life left. But if you think you've got like 10 times your life left, then you're not going to be that bothered, are you? I love this analogy. So they say the odds of you being alive, imagine there is in all the world's oceans one turtle and one life preserver ring, you know, like those rings that they throw to, yeah. So the chances of you being born are equivalent to that turtle emerging from the water in all the world's oceans and putting its head through the life preserver ring in one try.
Ariane, I'm just looking at the time now. I think we asked you if you could spare 30 minutes. We've gone on for 50. Are you okay?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's fine.
Is there anything that you want to chat to us about? Anything that you want to?
Well, I was looking at your book, and you've got 54 reviews and very good reviews.
Oh, thanks.
May I say?
Took me a while to write them. No, they're all genuine. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you have any tips on promoting your book? How did you accrue so many reviews? Because I've only got 14 on my book. I mean, it only came out in July, but yeah, that's
mine's been out a longer time. It's been out for about 3 years. I think
sure.
The way I got the reviews was, I think it's usually the usual family and friends who buy it first. They put the reviews up, but I use Facebook a lot. I think I've sold more copies through Facebook, I think, than Twitter or any other social media.
Oh, great.
I think as well, I work as an IT contractor, usually sort of short-term contracts. So when I go to a new company, I've had maybe eight contracts over the past 3 years. So I'm always leaving a copy there, and people are picking it up and sort of recommending it and passing it on to their family and friends. So it just helps spread it a little bit. And also, the audio version came out about a year, maybe 18 months ago. Doesn't sell many at all, really, the audio book.
Sure.
Are you getting on with, is yours, have you got the audio version of your novel?
No, I'm still working on the paperback and the audiobook. The audiobook is recorded. I just need to edit it.
Did you actually do the voiceover yourself for the audio?
So no, because the two main characters are the men.
Yeah.
So I managed to do Melinda and Stalker Pig and Lucy. So I've done those voices, but the male characters were voiced by my friend James. Brilliant. So yeah.
Did you do is it Valencia, the agent, the literary agent?
Oh, Veronica Laval.
Veronica, that's the one. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. They're very posh.
Was that who you described a few minutes ago, or the nasty comment you got back?
No, that wasn't her. This one was a guy.
Oh, fair enough.
A lot of them out there, but yeah, I'm lucky to have had nice agents. So yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But it's so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for the interview.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for agreeing. I don't know, could we chat maybe in another year's time when I was going to say you're on Top of the Pops, but you're old enough to remember Top of the Pops, the equivalent. I missed that.
I'd absolutely love to, Terry. Thank you so much for asking.
Brilliant.
I look forward to it.
Thanks. Well, again, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, me too. Nice to see you. Lovely to see you, Amit.
Bye, Ariana. Sorry for the popping in and out.
That's okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.